Greetings from my wife and my daughter. By the way, my daughter is actually a teen right now. She's not even a preteen. She just turned 13 in September. She's actually in her second year of high school. Can you believe it? You know, very, very tall and, growing up to be a beautiful, beautiful young lady. Now, a lot of you, keep telling me, oh, Pastor, we miss you here at CITAM Woodley. You keep telling me you are coming to Buru to visit, but you never show up. I'm the one who has to keep coming. Nitawacha kukuja. Hata mimi nitagoma ni sikuji. Please come and visit us, every now and then. Of course, yes, there are, a number of us who once in a while will just surprise us, just come for the Sunday service. But they just know that it means something to us. It's very encouraging, I think, when you just come to encourage us there. Well, we'll want to continue into our session, and we are talking about leader care, how to take care of yourself as a leader. So I don't know whether the thing will work, or it's not going to work? Wow, okay, fine. So, which means you have to do a lot of listening, all right? You just have to just kind of follow through. Oh, all right, okay, all right. So leader care. And we want to just jump right into that. And the whole idea, basically, as we're talking about leader care, is how do we take care of ourselves? As we are taking care of everybody and everybody's business as a leader, at whatever level, by the way, are you taking care of yourself? As you're feeding other people, are you feeding you? Are you ensuring that you're also being fed? By the way, and when you talk about leadership, just from the very basic level, maybe just in the family, maybe you're a father, you're a mother at home, and everybody, of course, is placing their demands on you. You're doing this, you're doing that. You're always on your feet, running here and there, and what have you. But are you taking care of yourself? Sometimes we are so sacrificial in our leadership. Sometimes we give so much, and because we neglect ourselves, we limit the span, that God will have used us in leadership. So many leaders have actually fallen by the wayside, not because they were bad leaders, by the way, not because they were not effective, but simply because maybe they did not take care of a few things. They did not pay attention to their own care and their own nature. So God, remember, and I just want to make this preamble and this introduction, and I think, which I'm sure we'll all be agreed in, is that God uses ordinary men and women to accomplish extraordinary things for his own glory. Leaders are not supermen or superwomen, just ordinary people. Human beings, by the way. How many human beings are here today? Let me see. Oh, good. I might just be talking to myself here. Please understand, human beings are fallible. Human beings are imperfect. By the way, I dare suggest human beings are foolish and weak. Are you with me? We are fallible. Sometimes we think of ourselves more highly than we ought. We think we are all that. Tell your neighbor you're not all that. Chill out. Sometimes we take ourselves way too seriously. Sometimes we have this grandiose idea of who you are. Like for us, especially as pastors, when people call you man of God, and or a woman of, those powerful terms we use. By the way, in fact, as a pastor, sometimes when I hear people saying, calling, maybe a pastor or a great man of God has passed on, say, God's general has passed on. I don't know about you, but I always feel God doesn't have any generals. He doesn't need a general. You know what he needs? He just needs servants, servant leaders. That's all. We are not all that. Are you with me? And yes, we will. Accomplishing great things does not necessarily mean that you're not ordinary. You are ordinary. You have limitations. You have weaknesses. You have imperfections. That's the truth of the matter. On the other hand, whereas we are weak, we are called to lead despite ourselves, despite our weaknesses. Can you imagine? God still expects me to lead. Have you ever come to a place where you feel like the demand on you is way too much for you? It's like people are demanding something that is, you know in your heart, this is too much. I don't have that kind of capacity. Yet God still expects us to lead despite ourselves. Why? Not because of ourselves, but because of Him. He is faithful. Because our weakness is made perfect in His strength. He strengthens us in our weaknesses. Leadership, friends, is hard work. Anybody agree? It's a lot of work. All right? You don't lead by sitting at home on the couch, watching movie after movie, flipping the channels. Leadership, you have to be on your feet. You have to think. You have to speak. You have to communicate. You have to help people. You have to be there for people. That's what leadership is. It is hard work. To lead others effectively is to actually risk exhaustion, to risk pain. As you're leading, you're actually risking depression, you're risking sickness, you're risking madness, by the way, mental health issues. You're risking sickness. Did you know that? To lead means at the same time you are risking all these things. I am not saying that these things cannot happen, without you leading. But you increase the risk when you choose to be a leader. Therefore, leader care is therefore an essential part of leading. Are you still with me? So what is leader care? Leadership or leader care is the intentional strategies and steps that a leader employs consistently to mitigate the risks attached to leadership. Can I repeat that? It is the intentional strategy. Notice, intentional. It doesn't happen by default. All right? It has to be intentional. So as a leader, I must be intentional. So it is intentional strategies and steps that a leader employs consistently. Notice the other word again. You must employ it consistently. So it's not a one-off, it's not once in a year, it's not once a month, but on a consistent basis. There has to be something going on, but you could employ it consistently to mitigate the risks that are attached to leadership. That is simply what leader care is all about. Now, leader care stems from, number one, so where does it come from? What is the basis? It comes from a careful estimation of the leader's own capacities. That is physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, social, name it. So in other words, as a leader, I must have a well-considered estimation. I must do an audit of myself. I must know my own capacities. All right? It is important for me to always do that audit. Where am I physically? I mean, right now with, physical well-being, really, something that is on everybody's lips. For the past 2 years, and we have lost people. We have lost friends. There are people who have survived the pandemic, but now their physical capacity has actually been limited, isn't it? They are not able, they used to operate at a certain level. Now they're not able to. They get tired more quickly, and they have to be more careful. All right, and you have to know, you have to monitor your body changes. One of the things, I'm not old by any standard, but I realize now I am not young either. There are things I used to get away with when I was 20. By the way, believe it or not, I used to be as small as Pastor Moricho there. I used to be like that. Nice afro. I was good looking. But now, a lot of water has gone under the bridge. Right? There was a time to lose weight for me was so easy. I used to boast about it. All I had to do was skip a few meals, and I would lose a kg. Today, I can fast for a whole month. It's not going anywhere. And you realize you're not the same person that you used to be. Physically, you realize that you're not as strong, you're not as agile, you're not as flexible as you used to be. All right? And you realize with passage of time, we keep changing. So I have to keep track of myself. I have to know what I'm capable of and what I'm not capable of. There are things I used to enjoy when I was younger. I don't enjoy them anymore. So it's good for me to always have that conversation with myself. Are you with me? All right? Because nobody's going to do it for you, by the way, as we shall see. Now, again, leadership care stems from an awareness of my personality traits. And we'll talk a little bit about personality a little bit later. We are different people. All right? Our personalities are different. There are things, because of my personality, they don't come naturally for me. Are you with me? You know, because of my personality, and that's just my personality, and I have to know my limitations. All right? But we'll talk about that a little bit ahead. It also stems from a candid insight into one's own weaknesses and vulnerabilities. The truth is, all of us here who are here, I know we are all saved. I know we are all spirit-filled, fire-spitting, on fire with the Holy Ghost, demon chasing, going to heaven without breaks. But the truth is, we have issues. Am I right? And all of us here, you have a proclivity towards one thing or the other. All right? Now, for example, don't ask me to go and rob a bank. I mean, I will just tell you, get thee behind me, Satan. It's not God. I mean, it's not a temptation for me. Are you with me? But for somebody else, you tell them the same thing, they will ask when. Are you with me? I have to know my own vulnerabilities. I have to know that, hey, let me not go there because I know that is a temptation for me. Let me not do that because that's a temptation for me. All right? Somebody else may get away with it, but not for me. I have to know myself. And I'm not talking about being oversensitive, but I'm just saying it's part of leader care. All right? So that I don't put myself in a place that I'm going to end up making some wrong choices. Leader care stems from a passionate desire to be an effective leader in the long haul. So how passionate am I about my leadership? Do I just want to be a leader for the season or for a short season? Or do I want 10 years down the line, Christ starting and God giving me strength? Do I still want to be there 30 years down the line? Are you with me? So if I have that passion that, hey, you know what, I want to be in this thing until the Lord calls me home, all right? I want to be in this thing for as long as God wants me to do it. Then that means that I must engage myself with some care. I have to inject some leader care into my leadership. Now, as we're thinking of leader care, there's just two words. I'm not going to complicate it too much. There's just two aspects, two words that I'm just going to bring to us, which, in my opinion, I believe that a lot of things that have to do with leader care and the leader's well-being can actually be encapsulated into these two words. And the two words are weariness and woundedness. Are you with me? Weariness and woundedness. Everything we will talk about today will somehow come under the shadow of these two concepts or these two things that we must deal with. Weariness and woundedness are the two main catalysts that trigger our deficiencies, and they cause those deficiencies to come to the surface. All right? So I may be doing very well, very effective, but weariness and woundedness, either both of them at the same time or just one of them, if not managed, somehow will push certain issues in my own life to come to the fore, to come to the surface. That is why, listen, that is why sometimes you can find a good leader, a good person, a good woman, and one day they will, everybody knows them, they're highly respected, well-learned, well-educated, well-placed in society. Everybody can see their potentials. Everybody appreciates their leadership. But then, one day, out of nowhere, they do something that leaves everybody wondering, him? How? it's actually almost impossible to believe that that person could find themselves in that particular situation. And I think we've seen it happening, isn't it? In our own contemporary times, we can give many, many examples, And a lot of times, in my opinion, by the way, that this can be traced down, really, to weariness and woundedness that has actually not been managed. Every leader, listen, every leader, no matter how good and how effective they are, will experience weariness and woundedness to a certain degree from time to time. Listen, it is not a demon. So I'm not going to I bind the spirit of weariness. It's not going to work. Are you with me? It's not a demon. It is a reality that I must deal with. Weariness and woundedness are the sign. By the way, listen, weariness and woundedness are actually the sign that you're actually leading. Isn't that interesting? That is actually the sign that you're actually leading. If you never feel weary, if you never feel wounded, most likely, you're not leading. Say amen. Adam is supposed to say, look well. Are you with me? It's actually the sign that you're actually doing something. Weariness and woundedness are actually two sides of the same coin, though also are distinct in nature. All right? So on the one hand, they can be two sides of the same coin because, and why I say that is because that show me somebody who is weary, and I will show you somebody who is probably very wounded. Or show me somebody who is wounded, and I will show you somebody who is very weary. Or one leads to the other. Somehow they play into one another. Actually, when I'm weary, I become more susceptible to becoming wounded. I become more sensitive, isn't it? Have you ever found yourself becoming oversensitive? Una catch. Okay, for those of you from the other generation, who catch means that you're oversensitive. Una catch my feelings, Have you ever found yourself in a place where in small things, you get irritated. You are so irritated. Sometimes that's a sign that, hey, maybe you're tired. Maybe you need to take a break. Now, weariness and woundedness, by the way, listen, they have a way of sneaking into our lives. They don't come knocking. It can just sneak in so quietly. You will think you're okay until something happens. You will think, everything, until then you realize, man, I think something is going on. It just sneaks in on you. Weariness and woundedness, listen, although negative, of course they're negative, listen, they are integral ingredients towards leader care. If we did not go through them, we will not need leader care. They are an integral part because they will help us. Weariness and woundedness will actually help us to understand ourselves better, to confront certain issues much better. So it's not just a matter of mitigating against them and running away from them, but it's a matter of allowing the Lord to use them for our own good. Does that make sense? Let's define weariness. Weariness really is nothing complicated. It's just extreme tiredness. Yani umechoka. Punda amechoka. It is fatigue, basically. It is you're worn out. You are spent. You feel overtaxed, or what we normally refer to as burnout. You feel burnt out. Now, I know there's usually, I think psychologists will tell us there's a major, level of burnout that is different completely. But every now and then, you'll actually burn out, isn't it? You'll get to a place where you feel, you know what, I can't do this anymore. Can I be honest? Sometimes, now, I'm not speaking for the other pastors, all right? But sometimes the only reason I go to church on a Sunday morning is because I'm the pastor. I'm serious. Sometimes the only reason I will come is because I am the pastor. Because what are the people supposed to do? But the truth is, I am tired. Not tired of people. Okay, although sometimes, let's be honest. Sometimes you just wake up in the morning and just feel, Lord, why can't I just be like every other normal person? Let me just stay at home on that. Even me, let me feel how they feel when they choose not to come to church. But then you wake up and you realize you're the pastor. Whether you like it or not, you have to show up. And that's the truth, because sometimes we get tired. In fact, let's look at just a few. We'll look at just a few biblical examples of leaders who got tired. All right, just a few, not exhaustive, but just a few. And you can think of others. But before we do so, this is what somebody called Anais Nin. This is what he said. He says, "Love never dies a natural death. It dies because we don't know how to replenish its source. It dies of blindness and errors and betrayals. It dies of illness and wounds. It dies of weariness, of witherings, of tarnishings." Notice, it says, love never dies a natural death. You know, it is actually killed. And it dies because we are not replenishing it. We are tired. By the way, we're talking about marriage. We're talking about leadership, but even marriage is the same thing. In your marriage, do you get tired every now and then? Okay, I know you will not admit, but but sometimes you get tired, isn't it? Sometimes you get tired even in marriage. But you have to find ways of replenishing that love in that marriage. All right? 1 Kings chapter 19, just a few examples. Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servants there. While he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, he came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. And look at what he said. "I have had enough, Lord," he said. "Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors." Then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. All at once an angel touched him and said, "Get up and eat." He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank and then lay down again. This was just after the encounter at Mount Carmel. You remember that glorious, great encounter with the prophets of Baal? And then, immediately after, because his life was threatened, the guy was so tired, got into some form of depression. He comes and lays down. This is the same guy who was calling fire from heaven. Now he's saying, "Lord, nimechoka." In fact, take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. And the guy actually laid down under a bush too, and fell asleep. What was his problem? I mean, from this, the guy was just tired and hungry. Isn't that, look at whatever text there. Because the guy fell asleep after that prayer. And then an angel touched him to wake him up and eat. I mean, you have to have been so tired that you fall into a sleep that an angel has to wake you up. The guy, and then of course he finds some bread, imagine, straight from heaven bakery. He wakes up, eats, drinks some water, and then he ate, drank, and then did what? Lay down again and slept. Brother was just tired. Notice verse 7 says, the angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." So he got up and ate and drank. Strengthened by that food, he traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. There he went into a cave and spent the night. He was just tired. Numbers 11, verse 10 to 15. Story of Moses here. Moses had the people of every family wailing at the entrance of their tents. The Lord became exceedingly angry, and Moses was troubled. He asked the Lord, "Why have you brought this trouble on your servant? What have I done to displease you, that you put the burden of all these people on me?" And then verse 12, this famous question he asks God, "Did I conceive all these people? Did I give them?" Wait, I am bold, but I'm usually not that bold, Some things I wonder whether God will strike me dead if I say it. Did I give them birth? Why do you tell me to carry them in my arms as a nurse carries an infant to the land you promised on oath to your ancestors? Where can I get meat for all these people? They keep wailing to me. Give us meat to eat. I cannot carry all these people by myself. The burden is too heavy for me. Whenever you feel that the burden is too heavy, it just means that you are tired. If this is how you are going to treat me, please go ahead and kill me. If I have found favor in your eyes, and do not let me face my own ruin. The guy was just tired of all the wailing. For those of you probably maybe who have children, never gone home and your children made you so tired. The only thing is that you're the one who gave birth to them, so you can't ask this kind of question. You know? Exodus 17, verse 8 to verse 13, the Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, pick out some men to go and fight the Amalekites tomorrow. I will stand on top of the hill, holding the stick that God told me to carry. Joshua did as Moses commanded him and went out to fight the Amalekites, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. Now, verse 11 says, as long as Moses held up his arms, now remember he's a leader, the Israelites were winning, all right? But when he put his hands down, the Amalekites started winning. When Moses' arms grew tired, Aaron and Hur put a stone for him to sit on while they stood beside him and held up his hand, holding them steady until the sun went down. In this way, Joshua totally defeated the Amalekites. Notice that this man's influence as a leader was so powerful and so great, such that all he had to do was lift up his hands while the battle was going on at the valley with Joshua there. And as long as his hands were up in the air, and I'm sure, of course, this was a sign of prayer, interceding for the people. Yet he's human. His hands will grow weary and tired. So, and of course, he will just want to take a break and, just bring down his hands. But the moment he will do that, the enemy will begin prevailing. Isn't that a beautiful picture for us? To show us, first of all, the power of intercession, the power of prayer, being in God's presence, but also revealing to us our own weakness, that we will get weary. And the moment we begin getting weary, if we do not have support, the enemy begins advancing and prevailing in our lives. 2 Samuel 21, verse 15. Once again, there was battle between the Philistines and Israel. Now, this was during the time of David. Now, David went down with his men to fight against the Philistines, and he became exhausted. Are you with me? Verse 15. So remember, David had been going on battle after battle. He's the leader of God's people. All right? He's in the army. So the people look up to him, but battle after battle had left David exhausted, weary. Now, verse 16 says, and Ishbi-Benob, one of the descendants of Rapha, whose bronze spearhead weighed 300 shekels, and who was armed with a new sword, said he would kill David. Now, that Ishbi-Benob was a descendant of Rapha, whose bronze spearhead weighed 300 shekels. Now, this guy was a powerful guy, was a giant of a man. He was like Goliath. All right, the moment the Bible starts telling you the weight of a man's weapons, it tells you that was a powerful man. But it's always a picture of the great adversary of our souls, Satan himself. Are you with me? So notice, of all the people, David has been in battle, he's been fighting, but we've been told he's exhausted. This guy wants now to take advantage of the situation. He says, I'm going to kill David. That's what the enemy does. The amazing, he knows when Pastor Jesse is tired. And the moment he knows, he puts a plan into place to kill me, to destroy my ministry, to destroy my leadership, and so with yours. But notice what happened here. But Abishai, son of Zeruiah, came to David's rescue. He struck the Philistine down and killed him. Then David's men swore to him, saying, never again will you go out with us to battle, so that the lamp of Israel will not be extinguished. Thank God that David had this kind of people around him. Thank God he had people who were selfless, who were looking out for him. And it is important, by the way, for leaders, for us, to always also have people who look out for us. Can I be honest? The problem with leadership in the church, and the problem sometimes with God's people, is that we wait for the enemy to destroy one of us so that we can come and finish him off. That's what we do, isn't it? We notice somebody's in trouble, but instead of coming quickly to their aid to cover them, what do? We ensure they are finished. That's what we do. We become judgmental. And I've seen this, I've been in church all my life, and I've seen it happening over and over and over again. I must be honest. When was that? I think, was it last year when Dr. Ravi Zacharias died? Was it last year? It was earlier this year. It was last year. I must say that I was appalled and I was very disappointed by how Christians reacted to the allegations that came after Dr. Ravi Zacharias died. I was honestly appalled. Suddenly, even right now, if you go on YouTube, there are channels and channels, people commenting and saying all manner of, Ravi Zacharias is and all that and all the other, forgetting that he had a widow who he left behind. Now, listen, this is my position. Whether those allegations were true or not, first of all, Ravi is not here to defend himself. Are you with me? Number two, whether they were true or not, it is between him and the Lord. Because let's never forget, and I'm not here to defend him, but let's never forget that one of the enemy's strategy is to discredit God's people so that the message is watered down. And the people who commented the most were actually evangelical Christians. That was unfortunate. Yet this is a man who has preached the gospel how many years? More than 40 years. Here is a man who literally thousands of people will go to heaven because of his ministry. Yet some of the people who are criticizing him the most have never even led anybody to Christ. Isn't that weird? We should learn to defend our own. I'm not saying we cover one another's sin. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, if tomorrow Pastor Jesse is in trouble, will there be people who will come and surround me and say, Pastor, we don't know what's going on, but we're with you. We are praying with you. We are here to encourage you. That's what happened with David here. If this guy called Abishai had not come in the aid of David, David would have been killed. And if David would have been killed at this particular point, I assure you, the army would have scattered. And the enemy would have prevailed. More, may the Lord help us. Woundedness. Can we talk about woundedness briefly? Woundedness is a state of being hurt. Where you're heartbroken. You are pained. You feel emotionally abused. You know, woundedness is you feel misunderstood, misrepresented. Where you feel judged. Where you feel abandoned, you feel neglected. A few biblical examples of wounded leaders. But before we do the biblical examples, I like what A.W. Tozer says. A.W. Tozer says, it is, and I quote, it is doubtful whether God can bless a man greatly until he has hurt him deeply. God actually raises up storms of conflict in relationships at times in order to accomplish that deeper work in our character. We cannot love our enemies in our own strength. This is graduate level grace. How many of you agree? Are you willing to enter this school? He asks. Are you willing to take the test? If you pass, you can expect to be elevated to a new level in the kingdom. For he brings us through this test as preparation for greater use in the kingdom. But you must pass the test first. That is God's school of graduating you. But I like that, and I'm sure you've heard this statement many times. It is doubtful whether God can bless a man greatly until he has hurt him deeply. It is doubtful, friends, that God will use you greatly as a leader until you have been allowed to go through some difficult hurts, some difficult wounds. Show me a great leader, whether in the Christian kingdom, within Christianity, or in contemporary times, or even in history. Show me a great leader, and I'll show you a man who has also had to endure deep hurt, deep pain. If you want to be a Nelson Mandela, you cannot remove Robben Island out of the equation. 27 years, my friends. Some years ago, went to South Africa. We went to Robben Island. It's one of those places. If you ever go to South Africa, you must go to Robben Island. Right now, it's just one of those heritage. And they take you to Moses, where Nelson Mandela, was in prison. His cell. It's a small, little. If you're claustrophobic, you can't survive in that place. Small, little. I can't remember the measurements. Very small place, and that's where he spent a good portion of his life. And yet this man comes out of prison. I don't know whether I have the character like him. Comes out of prison and talks about forgiving the same people who incarcerated. I'm not sure. But that was a man who endured great pain, woundedness. No wonder he became the man that he became. Jeremiah, in Jeremiah 20, verse 7, Lord, you have deceived me, and I was deceived. Do you remember Jeremiah? This great prophet. By the way, do you know Jeremiah is the one who wrote Lamentations? This guy had a lot of problems. You cannot write Lamentations unless you're hurting. And more than once. If you're wounded, you will write Lamentations, I'm telling you. But his messages are always messages of hope. All right? So why will Jeremiah write this? You have to know the whole story from verse 1. See, Jeremiah was a guy who had been called, from his mother's womb. You remember in chapter 1? God had set him apart for the nations. But as he began his ministry, Jeremiah, they say, preached for years before he saw even one convert. The only thing that he seemed to attract over and over again was persecution. In fact, in Jeremiah 20, he found himself in the hands of a man called Pashur. Pashur was like the head of the temple at that particular time. They were both in the ministry, the amazing thing. But Pashur, now Jeremiah was the one who was anointed as a prophet. Pashur was just a political kind of arrangement because his father probably was the leader in the temple and what have you. But Pashur made it his life passion to persecute Jeremiah. This guy will be beaten, he will go all manner of things. So Jeremiah, this man was so wounded, he prayed this prayer. He said, Lord, how do you begin accusing the Lord that he deceived you? You have deceived me and I was deceived. In fact, and then he says, and you are actually stronger than I, and you have overpowered me. Everyone makes fun of me. They laugh at me all day long. Whenever I speak, I have to cry out and shout violence, destruction. Lord, I am ridiculed and scorned. This guy is in pain, isn't he? All the time because I proclaim your message. And then he said, but when I say I will forget the Lord and no longer speak in his name, then your message is like a fire burning deep within me. I try my best to hold it in, but can no longer keep it back. It's like, Lord, you have put me in a trap. You have played me. I feel played. You called me, but you didn't tell me I will be persecuted. And every time I open my mouth to proclaim, the only thing I get is violence. But then he said, and then when I decide, in other words, when he says, in contemporary terms, you say, and Lord, when I decide I'm going on strike. Because basically this is what it means, going on strike. I'm not going to preach in your name. I am not going. He says, your word in me is like a fire shut up in my bones. Now, Jeremiah was not a Pentecostal, all right, to say those words. Now, those were also not words they were words of frustration, saying, on the one hand, when I preach, trouble. When I keep quiet, trouble. So what do I do? I just have to keep preaching and keep being beaten. That's how the ministry sometimes for us who are in ministry, that's how it is sometimes, right? Because and I have discovered this is the irony of it all. You know, when I was younger, when God called me to the ministry, I actually thought that you know, as God uses you, things will be amazing and things will happen. People will rejoice. They will be happy when they see people coming to the Lord. Hey, I have discovered that's far from the case. Yes, there are those who rejoice, but there are people who also get very angry because God is using you. Have you noticed that? And I'm not talking about, see, it's one thing to be persecuted by people who are not believers. Or Muslims, for example. If Muslims came here with a gun and started bombing us, we will rejoice. Okay, a bit. All right? Because we will say, man, we are dying. Man, can you imagine? We must be having an impact. But it's a different ball game when your own brethren, are you with me? Who you're supposed to be fighting from the same side, begin persecuting you. That is the greatest test that you will ever go through. And that's what Jeremiah was actually going through. Genesis 39, another incident here. When his master heard the story of his wife told him, this is how your slave treated me. He burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. Remember the story of Joseph? And this is just one incident. If there's a man who knew what it means to be wounded, it's actually Joseph, by his own brethren. Then he comes into the house of Potiphar. Mrs. Potiphar makes a move on him. You know, and yet Potiphar was actually blessed because Joseph was there. And he ends up in prison for no crime, goes to prison. He interprets the dreams of some two guys who had been incarcerated. Tells them, please, the guy who, one of them was hanged, the other one who, of course, was promoted. He said, please, when you go, remember me. The guy forgets him for 2 years. Are you with me? I mean, and I'm thinking, Joseph, one thing after the other, after the other, after the other. Difficulties. And sometimes those are the things that we have to go through. 2 Samuel chapter 15, but David continued up the Mount of Olives, weeping as he went. David the warrior. This guy, you know, I like studying David because David amazes me. David was a man who displayed such interesting combination of character and personality. On the one hand, David is a very sensitive man. All right? He is such a worshiper. He loves to play the harp. He plays it so beautifully under the anointing that demons flee. All right? He writes poetry, beautiful songs and hymns. I mean, most of the Psalms, more than 50% of the Psalms are attributed to David. And you can see his heart, and the guy is so poetic. And you can imagine David maybe while he was in the wilderness looking after his father's sheep. He's there, I mean, because he loved to worship, blowing kisses to God. You know, he's that kind of a dude. But he loves the Lord. But don't think that David's a weakling. Because when David takes a hold of the sword, I mean, David will use the sword if he needs to. You remember how he killed Goliath? In fact, when Goliath fell, he came and cut off the head of Goliath after Goliath had died. That's how bad he was, man. But then, you will think that's enough. When David discovered that you can get a wife just from attacking the Philistines. In fact, Saul, trying to destroy him, told him, was it 100 foreskins? I mean, like, seriously? That girl must be very special. For me to go to the end of this guy, 100, do you know what that means? Oh, anyway, you go and read it. But the guy comes with 100 foreskins, his hands are bloody, and comes to Saul. I'm just trying to picture, I'm trying to be dramatic here. All right? Comes, I mean, first of all, were there paper bags? I mean, how do you sanitize? I mean, like, really? Yeah. He comes and, you know, in front of Saul, the king. You want to count? Give me my wife. I mean, that's David for you. So no wonder he couldn't build God a temple because his hands were too bloody. Yet, look at what happened to David. 2 Samuel chapter 15, verse 30. But David continued up the Mount of Olives, weeping. as he went. His head was covered and he was barefoot. All the people with him covered their heads too and were weeping as they went up. Now, David had been told, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. So David prayed, Lord, turn Ahithophel's counsel into foolishness. Why was David weeping? Because of his son Absalom. You remember Absalom? Absalom had betrayed his father, was overturning the kingdom. David, on the one hand, suffering the wound of betrayal, yet the wound of betrayal by his own son. Probably maybe wondering and hoping, I wish it was somebody, but not my own flesh and blood. So David is there weeping. The king is weeping because the king is wounded. In Africa, I know, especially as men, we are taught that men don't cry. How many of you men who are here have discovered that that's not true? It's not true. We cry. Maybe not publicly, but we cry. Maybe not in front of your wife, but you cry. And you know why sometimes we cry? Because we are wounded. A man can endure physical pain. All right? You can endure physical pain for days. But an emotional wound, you will cry. You will weep. And it is necessary. Leader care. So let's break this down because I need to be done in a short while. So leader care. So then how do I take care of myself? Having understood just a panoramic view of weariness and woundedness. So then how do I take care of myself? Number one, the first place to always start is a place of self-awareness. Always ask yourself, every now and then, take a break. Seek for solitude somewhere. Ask yourself certain questions. Number one, am I okay? Have you ever asked yourself whether you're okay? Niko sawa? Am I okay? How is my heart? You know, is everything okay in there? And by the way, you're also doing this prayerfully, right? Because the heart of man is desperately wicked sometimes. Sometimes we can tell ourselves you're okay, but we're not, isn't it? Am I angry? By the time you're asking yourself, am I angry? You're usually very angry. Am I angry? You know. And then, you know, sometimes you ask, why did I overreact there? Have you ever maybe reacted in a situation, reacted in a certain way, and then you ask, why did I, later, I think I overreacted there. Anybody ever gone through that? And I have to ask myself, hey, I think I overreacted. I should not have snapped. I should not have been rude. I should not have done that. Something is going on. Am I feeling overwhelmed? All right? Am I feeling overwhelmed? Do I feel so bombarded? You know, am I hurting? And be honest. Maybe somebody, a colleague or somebody, maybe a spouse, maybe a child, it doesn't matter. But am I hurting? And just, you know, be honest with yourself. Am I tired? Seems like obvious questions, isn't it? But these are real key. Because that's how your self-awareness starts. You begin realizing where you are. By the way, just a word of caution. Again, I am not suggesting that you be so self-absorbed, you know, like Narcissus. Okay, that's some Greek. You remember narcissism, where you fall in love with your own image on a mirror? That's not what we are talking about. I'm not saying you're so self-absorbed, all right? But this is just where you do it prayerfully, just so that also the Holy Spirit can help you to unearth sometimes what is going on. Number two is this. So the first thing is self-awareness. The second thing is, please, hear me. Leverage your expectations of people. All right? Leverage your expectation. In fact, bring them down considerably. Your expectations of people. Reduce them to irreducible minimum. Are you with me? I am not saying that we don't believe in people. I am not saying that we don't encourage people. I'm not saying that we don't cheer on people, because that's what we do. Leadership is about people, isn't it? But just learn to leverage your expectations. Don't have too great expectations where people are concerned. Leverage your, because leadership, friends, is lonely. You cannot surround yourself with thousands of people and everybody's in your life, speaking into your life and still lead. You can't. Leadership is lonely, I'll tell you. When people have eaten from you, when they have received from you, guess what? You are left by yourself. All right? But leadership is actually very, very lonely. By the way, leadership is also a very thankless affair. Sometimes you will do amazing things, even if you're impressed. Have you ever done something, hey, you even pat yourself on the back. Man, I did great. But the only person who will thank you is yourself. Sometimes people will just walk away as if nothing happened. Have you ever given somebody money and they didn't even say thank you? Sometimes that's how leadership is. People, by the way, please understand, people will disappoint you. All right? The same people that you lead are the same people who will disappoint you. See, I normally say that somebody out there who is outside of the fold of the people that I lead, they could do whatever they want. I don't care. It doesn't affect me. But the people in my fold, whatever they do will affect me. And I have to realize that they will disappoint from time to time. Ask me, I'm a pastor. Sometimes, let me give you a good example. Sometimes you have discipled your young people well. You are there, you give of yourself. Then one day, one of your young people comes and says, I am pregnant, unmarried. You get so disappointed. You ask the pastors, they will tell you. And yet you can't tell them, I told you so. You wish you would. It's in your mind. And you have to embrace them and walk the journey with them. They will disappoint you. People will also hurt you. By the way, they will hurt you intentionally and otherwise. That's the truth. Sometimes they will hurt you unintentionally. Sometimes they will do it intentionally. That's part of leadership. Listen, understand this. When you're dealing with people, that everyone is dealing with their own issues. Everybody has one thing or the other that they're dealing with. And by nature, we tend to turn in on ourselves. I have to take care of myself before I take care of anybody else. So please always understand, please always remember that sometimes as human beings, we are unpredictable. All right? Because we're carrying stuff. People are carrying this, I'm carrying that, I have this problem, I have this challenge. Number 3. So the first one, can you remember? What was the first thing? Self-awareness. Number 2, leverage your expectation. Number 3 is maintain a healthy spiritual life. Now, maintaining a healthy spiritual life is something that you have to do very intentionally. You have to be very deliberate. And it's very simple. I mean, this is not complicated. Make prayer, worship, and study of God's word a priority and a lifelong discipline. By the way, if you and I as leaders, if we can master this thing and really discipline ourselves that I have moments of prayer, regular moments of prayer, worship, studying God's word, just interacting with God's word on a regular basis, having a family altar at home, praying with your family and what have you, it goes a long way, believe me. It really, really goes a long way in ensuring that my soul, my heart, is actually kept in tune. Reach out and connect with others for fellowship and, by the way, for psychosocial support. Fellowship is important, by the way. Please don't be a lone ranger in this journey. All right? If you're going to lead, don't be a lone ranger. Learn to connect with people. I'm talking about people of the faith. You know, people you can sometimes just sitting over with them, just over a cup of tea, talk about life, talk about the ministry, talk about your leadership, talk about the struggles that you have. All right? Share, or just pray with them. But connect. Don't be a lone ranger. You should not be alone. Number 3, do not neglect the gathering together for corporate worship. Let me also say this, and I just want to say this respectfully. I know we are, God willing, we are coming out of the pandemic. I believe we really are, the world over. And of course, the pandemic has created different scenarios, I think, for all of us, especially also where the church is concerned. All right, but of course, a good number of people have come to church, but there's still a huge percentage of our people who have actually not yet come back to church. Now, and I want to tell you this, especially as leaders, all right, and the people that you lead, please understand something. Corporate worship is important for every one of us. It is entrenched in God's word, and it is something that I must engage in for my own spiritual well-being. In God's kingdom, there are no lone rangers. Now, and I'm saying this to also say this to you, all right? Virtual, worship services or watching a service on TV is not the same as going physically to a church. Are you with me? And I will let you fill in the gaps for yourself. I'm not saying this to castigate anybody, but I think we need to remind our people. It is important to go to church. Something happens when God's people come together. It is not just another social gathering. It is a spiritual encounter when God's people come together. And the two dynamics of me waking up on a Sunday morning, going into a house of worship, or me staying at home and watching a service on TV, the dynamics are different completely. I'm not saying that virtual watching a service, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, all right? And it had to be there because it had to carry us through that season, isn't it? But at the right time, it's time to reconnect. Are you with me? Number 4, maintain a healthy physical life. Please get enough rest daily. All right? Sleep early. All right? Or at least establish a certain rhythm that ensures that you're getting enough rest. Always remind yourself this. Listen to me, people. I always remind myself this too. You're not Superman. Please, you're not. Your body responds to certain rhythms on a daily basis. All right? You only have enough energy for a day. Are you with me? You only have enough energy for one day. Please allow your body to rest. If you don't rest your body, it will remind you very cruelly that you're not treating me right. Our bodies are amazing. The day it reminds you, hey, one to you. But sleep early. By the way, can I say this before I move away from sleep? When you go to sleep, switch off your phone. Zima simu. Really, people, when we were growing up, we didn't have these mobile phones. All right? In fact, one of the disadvantages of having mobile phones is that if you call me and I don't answer, you'll catch if I don't respond to your call. You remember those days we used to have house phones? If I called you, maybe I'm calling Pastor Eli, and I have his number. First of all, I prayed that his number was working. You remember those days? Then if I called his house, I want to speak to Eli. Oh, he's not there. Oh, okay, just tell him I called. Or maybe there's nobody in the house. It will ring, and then I'll assume there's nobody there. All right? So Eli, whenever he comes, he will return my call at his own convenience. But now, when I call him, if he doesn't pick, I expect him at the earliest convenience to call back. Isn't it? So in other words, we put ourselves under so much pressure. Has somebody ever called you 3 times? Maybe you're busy. Then when you finally get to talk to them, they say, nilikuwa nakusalimia tu. That time you're thinking, I thought the house was on fire. I thought something was serious. Ni salamu tu. I tell you. So when you go to sleep, please, can you make it a habit? Switch off. Let me tell you this. And maybe this is my philosophy, but maybe it might help somebody here. Listen, when you sleep, all right, just switch off. Put it on airplane mode. Just make sure that you're not receiving those emails or text messages or calls until 6 in the morning or whatever time you wake up. Because if you call me at midnight and tell me that you're stuck in Machakos because you have a flat tire, honestly, what am I supposed to do? Honestly. Are you with me? By the way, have you noticed that 99% of calls that come at midnight are never good news? Nobody has ever called me at midnight to tell me, Pastor, I feel the Lord has blessed me. I need to give you 1,000,000 shillings. I have never. Anybody ever received, maybe I should put on my, tell me, nobody. Usually, by the way, so-and-so is dead. So-and-so. I mean, it's really bad news. Now, if I receive that call at midnight or 1 in the morning, guess what? I'm not going to sleep again. It's impossible. So you know my philosophy, my simple philosophy is this in life. You don't have to take it. My simple philosophy, it may sound bad, all right? Once evening gets us in the house, and I have accounted for my wife, she's in the house. I've accounted for my daughter, she's in the house. And I shut the gate, I lock the doors of my house. I go to sleep, I switch off my phone. Because as far as I'm concerned, there's nobody else I need to account for. The ones I need to account for are indoors. If somebody dies at midnight, they will still be dead at 6. Are you with me? Now, I know it sounds bad. I know you're saying, Pastor. You know, some people have criticized, Pastor, you should leave your phone on. Listen. I keep reminding myself this. Jesse, you're not Jesus. I am not Jesus. I am Jesse. Are you with me? If somebody is fighting with their husband in the middle of the night, then you're calling me for prayer. You pray for yourself. Take some aspirin, painkillers if you have to. We will talk in the morning. Are you with me? That's part of leader care. Because I know in the morning when I wake, I need to be fresh. I need to be fresh for my family. I have demands. I have things I need to do. If I don't sleep well in the night, I assure you I will be of no good use the rest of the day. That's part of leader care, people. You don't have to do it, all right? But that's me, my own. That's the way I try to do. Because I don't want to hear my phone ringing in the middle of the night. Just so you know, I love my sleep. It is important to me. I tell you. Watu wamecatch my feelings up. I know, Pastor Muzimu, unazima zimu. I am not Jesus. By the way, Jesus doesn't switch off his phone. Can talk to him. Yeah. Number 2 is exercise. Yeah, I mean, I think that's obvious. Try and, engage in some physical activity. Exercise your muscles, exercise your body once in a while. Eat healthy. All right? I don't have to tell you these things, but you know. And if there's a time I think we have been reminded of the importance of us making sure that we have enough vitamins, it's actually been this season, isn't it? Eat healthy. By the way, number 4, schedule an annual vacation time. Please, schedule it and execute it. Where you go away from work, from the familiar, go to Mombasa, go somewhere. By the way, people from where I come from, I keep saying, Moranga is not a holiday destination. There are other places in this country. Neither is Kiambu. Go to a place that you can go on vacation, where you have no business interests. Are you with me? Just shut down. Just go and do something. Be out of the city, be out of the country, whatever the case may be. But just schedule that time. It may be a week, maybe 2 weeks. Christmas is almost coming. It's almost here now. Please go on vacation. By the way, it's not just about pleasure. It is about rest. Because sometimes I need to be away for me to think, just for me to see things from a different perspective. I need to be away so that even when people call me, oh, this is happening, I say, I can't help, I'm away. All right? It's important. It is important for you. Then when you come back, you actually feel refreshed and ready to engage. Engage in a physical sport. Find a hobby, by the way. All right? Just a hobby that you can engage yourself, whether it's cycling, whether it's trekking, whatever the case may be. Just find something that distracts you. Some of you like to play golf. All right? Whatever, find something. My wife and my daughter, once in a while, we gather some of our family members, or sometimes even friends, and we just go for bowling. It's very simple things. Just go here to Village Market and have a very nice bowling alley there. Just go and do some bowling just for an afternoon and burn some calories there. And it's exciting. Just do those things. Listen, life is not that serious. All right? Don't be so uptight. And it's funny. Sometimes you go on holiday. You're in Mombasa, the heat of Mombasa, and you find somebody in a suit. Kuja holiday in a suit. Serious, really. You see, you're wearing a tie, my friend. When you're in Mombasa, if you're on holiday, wear a t-shirt and shorts, even if you're a pastor. Are you with me? Learn to relax. Just let go. All right? Number 5, maintain a healthy social life. Number 1 is reach out and connect with people in real time. Now, listen, this is important because we are living in an era of virtual connections. Social media. Most of us here, I'm sure, are on Facebook. Am I right? And on Facebook, you have what? Thousands of friends. Anybody like that? I'm on Facebook. You're on Facebook or, and mostly multiple social media sites, whether Facebook, Instagram, and all those kind of things. So let's just take Facebook, for example, all right? You have, what? Anybody here with 1,000 friends? 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000? Wow, 5,000? Those are not your friends. Not your friends. They're not your friends. Believe me. So I ask you, and I'm telling you this because you're leaders, all right? Connect with people in real time. Are you with me? Call somebody, go out for lunch or whatever, all right? Be in each other's space because the virtual reality is very deceptive. Those are not your friends, I can assure you. So that is why it is not very wise that everything you do, you must post. And then you catch feelings if nobody comments. Because that's where we are now, isn't it? I mean, you feel very upset that, and by the way, so I notice, in fact, sometimes I don't post anything. If you've seen my, whatever, social media, I don't post anything. Because really, I think I used to, back in the last time I think I did that was like 4 or 5 years ago. All right, because I got to a point I realized I have outgrown this thing. All right, because I realized the importance of having my own privacy. All right, now, when you wake up in the morning and the first thing you're doing is posting, you even take a selfie of yourself yawning. Because that's what they do. You can't have breakfast before you take a picture of the breakfast and post it. Or this is what I'm thinking today. Or you take a picture of your family, really. And then you're doing that for a crowd who doesn't know you, they don't care about you. But their comments are so important to you. What you don't realize is that it is messing up with your psychological well-being. Small wonder, today we keep talking about mental health issues. Guess where they're coming from? They're coming from our virtual engagement. Are you with me? Because I have 5,000 friends, but I'm still so lonely. So for me to connect, I must tell them something so that they can start talking, and speaking into my life. I don't know, but maybe I'm old school for some of you who are younger here. But I've learned there's a lot of merit in managing my virtual engagement with people. All right? When you're going through a hard time, those 1,000 friends will not be there for you. Are you with me? In fact, let me tell you the problem with social media. If there's a scandal about you, Kenyans on Twitter will finish you off. And guess who those Kenyans on Twitter are? Some of them are your Facebook friends. I'm telling you. Are you with me? So we have, as a leader, it is my responsibility to be careful. And if I want to connect with people, let me call somebody and say, let's meet for a cup of tea. And we sit down for an hour or two and connect at that level. I did a clip, I think, on CITAM Church Online some time ago. I think it was don't live in a, for the crowd or in a crowd. And that's what a lot of people are doing. They're living in a crowd. By the way, in fact, before I move on from that point, psychologically speaking, all right, and spiritually speaking the truth is, none of us were made to have that number of people speaking into our lives. Are you with me? You don't have the capacity to have 1,000 people commenting about your life. None of us have that kind of capacity. Our capacity is for very few meaningful relationships. So when I open up my life too much and everybody's commenting this, commenting that, commenting the other, it's actually messing you up and you don't realize it. Number 2, social life, know which hand to hold on to and which hand to let go. Stop trying to drag everybody into your journey. Right? Leadership is about realize that there are people who come into your life for a short while, for a short season. They come, they play their role, they move on. Are you with me? And then there are people who God will give you and they will hold your hand for a long time. And you have to know, you have to discern. There are people who you will need to let go of, very, very quickly. They have served their purpose, it's time to move on. Because the moment you try to drag them into the journey, they begin feeding off of you. They wear you down. Now, let me ask an honest question. Can you think of somebody right now, maybe in your life, maybe you're in a relationship with, you connect one way or the other, but they drain you? Can you think of? Of course they are there, isn't it? Let go. Just let go of them. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. All right? It doesn't mean that you're antisocial. It's just life. All right? Just let them go. Let them be. Let them find other connections. Release them. Maybe, in fact, you're the reason why they're not moving on. Release them so they can also move on. Are you with me? Just let them be, let them go, so that you can move and God can connect you. In this life, especially in the Christian walk, there's divine connections and there's also divine disconnections. All right? And when you find divine connections, there will always be divine disconnections. Number 3, be the first to forgive and the last to offend. All right? Be the first to forgive and the last to offend. Adopt a healthy conflict resolution mechanism. And it is in the Bible, Matthew chapter 18. I must be honest. I think one of the areas that we struggle, especially in the African church, is in this area of conflict resolution. It's really hard for us to confront one another when there's offense involved. Usually, and maybe it's the way we were socialized as Africans. If you think about it, the way we are socialized as Africans, Africans by nature are not confrontational. So even if there's an issue, maybe in the homestead or in the family, how did we deal with it? How did your parents deal with it, or our forefathers? They will call somebody, and they will go round and round the issue, isn't it? Use parables and idioms. By this time, you're confused. You're wondering, what are we talking about? But that's how we are. All right? In the West, the Western mentality, the Western paradigm is different. In the West, if somebody offends the other, the one who is offended normally has no problem coming and saying, by the way, when you do this, you offended me. All right? Or when you do that, I don't take it very kindly. And then I'm so sorry. And they resolve quickly and they move on. In Africa, this is what has happened. This is what happens. So in the church, we know Matthew 18, what it says, and that, when somebody offends you, you go to them first, and what have you. Then later, you bring a witness. If they're not listening, you remember the whole process. In Africa, I come to you and say, I think you offended me here. What happens? People catch feelings. That's what we do in the church. So you know how we resolve our conflicts? So if I have maybe I'm in a conflict maybe with somebody here, you know how we sort out our problems? If maybe, who can I use? Oh, if my brother, just remind me your name? Albert. All right, so if maybe Albert here, maybe I didn't like the way he looked at me, all right? So I have a beef with this guy, all right? So instead of me coming to Albert and say, Albert, please, I didn't like the way you looked at me. I was very offended. All right? Because he's my brother in the Lord, I would expect him to say, I'm so sorry, maybe I didn't do it intentionally. All right? And then we reconcile and we move. Do you know how we do it here mainly in the African church? He's offended me. So I'll go now first look for Mauricio over there. Do you know what Albert did to me? Isn't that what we do? All right? I move from Pastor Mauricio there. I go to Pastor Eli. Do you know what Albert did to me? So what I do is that I create a civil war against Albert. And then I will do everything in my power to discredit him, isn't it? And to put him, I will do everything I can to bring him down. That's what we do even in the church. Now, my personality is that I'm confrontational. I mean, if you offend me, I'll come to you. I'll say, this is wrong. All right? But I realize people don't take it kindly. But I say, but that's the biblical model. And I'm not coming to you fighting you. I'm just telling you, this is not right. Can we talk about it? All right? And that's the way it's supposed. As a leader, I have that responsibility, to say so-and-so, I think I felt offended. Or so-and-so, I think I offended you, I am sorry. One of the most difficult things to hear in the church today, even among leaders, is the word, I apologize. Hey, somebody tell you, or do you know how we normally say it? If you feel bad, then I'm sorry. That's how we do it. There's no that genuineness where I come and say, hey, my brother, because I value your fellowship, I value your friendship, where I come and I'm genuinely, I say, listen, I am so sorry. If there's anything I can do, maybe to change, please just let me know, but I'm really, really sorry. How I long that we will get to that place. That's what leaders do. All right? That's what leadership is all about. I assure you, even right here, there are people here who are hurting. From a brother, maybe a brother or a sister who is seated here. But it's very difficult for you to level it out with them. And that's the way it's supposed to be, friends. Are you with me? All right? So find way. And then number two, still on that, it's part of maintaining a healthy social life. Please don't be too quick. Don't be too quick to act on hearsay and gossip. Are you with me? So you know what we do? So I go say, I've gone to these ones. Oh, Albert did this, did that. So these guys, instead of confronting me about my behavior, and why are you saying that about Albert? Can we go to Albert right now? What do? They act on it. Isn't that what we do? They go and decide, Albert is such a bad person. You know what he did to Pastor Jesse? That's what we do. And before you realize, Albert has been ostracized, he has been sidelined, he has been judged. Everybody's talking about Albert. And then at the end of the day, of course, he gets it doesn't solve any problems. We need to learn to be bold, so that if we value fellowship, these are some of the things that we must, as leaders especially, be able to do so that we can also teach our people to do likewise. Manage your virtual space, as I've already said, and your virtual instructions. Number 5, protect your privacy. Actually, I have discovered for me as a pastor, the more public you become, the more private you need to be. Are you with me? The more you find your public profile is increasing, the more you need to protect your privacy. Privacy is important for a leader. I'm not talking about secrecy, all right? I'm talking about privacy. Have a private life. When you go home, that should be your private sanctuary, all right? So in other words, put some limits around what you allow people into your life. I've already said watch out for gossip and watch out so that you may be able to guard your heart, so that your heart is not polluted. And then number 7, invest in quality family time. Let me tell you, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, guess where you go? You go back home. Isn't it? Go home. So it means if you have to go home every day, invest quality time there so that your loved ones will be happy having you home. All right? Mumenyamaza. Ama nimeongea sana. Okay. Then number 6, I'm just about to finish. So good news, I'm about to finish. And I'm going to recommend a book here. It's called Sacred Pathways. Find Your Sacred Pathway. This is a book that I came across some years ago, and I think it was very, very insightful on certain things. But it basically just talks about that every one of us, somehow have a sacred pathway, and these sacred pathways are pathways that God connects with you, or where you connect with God. We are all very, very different. Of course, yes, there's that basic things like prayer, fellowship, and what have you. But how that expresses itself in different people is actually also very, very different. So, and he lists about 9 categories, and I'll just run through them very quickly. You can identify yourself. So, in the sacred pathways, you have the naturalist. These are people who love the outdoors. Anybody who's like that? I mean, for you, when you're out in nature, taking a walk in nature somewhere, it refreshes you. Anybody who's like that? All right? And you and me, I'm like that. I mean, I just want to go somewhere, just away from the noise of the city, of hooting and all those kind of things, just to reconnect, breathe in some fresh air, pray, and it's just amazing. I can already picture myself there. All right? So some of you are like that, right? And that's, if that is you, it means that that's a way that you actually refresh. All right, so do that. Find schedule yourself, and once in a while, take a walk. And we have a few places I think you can go even in the city of Nairobi, like Karura Forest and Arboretum, just places that you can just go an hour or 2 and just bask in the presence of the Lord. Number 2, he lists sense it. There are people who, for them, they must experience. They are sensational. All right, so they want to go into a powerful service, like tomorrow, for example. All right, and for them, that's how they reconnect. They love some action, and they want to be around a place where their senses are tickled. Then we have people who are traditionalists. By the anybody who loves that, any sense it? People who respond, you must experience something. Let me see. Or like Muga here, anybody else? Oh, even Pastor Eli. All right? And by then, none of them is better than the other, right? It's just the way God wired us. Number 3, traditionalists. They're people who love ritual and symbol. All right? They want to sing a hymn. Isn't it? They want to celebrate the Lord's table. They want to say the rosary. Okay, maybe not us, but they love symbols. They love something. You get what I mean? And that's what connects. They want to sing they want to sing a hymn in mother tongue. Because when they sing it in our peleka mahali. Anybody who's like that? Let me see. Yeah, a good number of you. You know what I'm talking about. Then you have the ascetics. Ascetics are people who love, just say, let me be alone. They love solitude. They love simplicity. Just saying, leave me alone. Do I have any leave me alone people? Just for a few days, for a few more, just come on, talk to me. Let me see. Because I'm like that also. All right? One of the things that people have always misunderstood, let me explain something to you. Like when I go tomorrow I'll be in church, right? In CITAM Buruburu. So I come to church, maybe I preach 2 services. All right? I've been there early, sweat my heart out, and I preach 2 services. Let me tell you, do you know the first thing that I want to do after that? I want to be alone. Are you with me? So for me, I'll go straight to my car, and I have to leave. Now, there are people, because there are people who are energized by crowds. So even after they have preached, they want to go and sit in the office and begin counseling. Not me. Are you with me? Because for me, I must withdraw. For me, I need to recharge. I need to re-energize. I must withdraw. And that is why, in fact, normally, and I make it my rule. I say, I will not go to the office. I go normally from the pulpit straight to my car. I have to leave for my own good. You're very quiet here. I know it's not very pastoral. Because that's what I've been told. It's not very pastoral. Really? If you want to hang around here the whole day, please be my guest. But as for me and my house, I'll be in my house. Solitude. I love, by the way, one of the things I also enjoy, like when I'm traveling, is solitude. In fact, I normally tell one of my motivations for traveling is solitude. Because I'll have so many hours sitting in a plane for 8 hours alone. And you will not be there. None of you will be there. You have no idea what it does to me. Because I need that. For me, I need to, that's how I recharge. Just that sense of just being alone. Does it mean I'm antisocial? No. It just means that's one of my sacred pathways. Number 5, activist. Let me conquer. There are people who, unless they fight with demons, that's how they reconnect. They're looking for a spiritual warfare. And I know a few of them. They need something to fight. They need something to confront. And not to offend, but that's just who they are, isn't it? For them, that's why they feel, that's how I connect. When I have cast out a few demons, now I'm good. Number 6, then you have caregivers. Those, by the way, do you have any activists? Let me see. I know now you're shy. I made it sound bad. Oh, they have an activist. Or anybody else is an activist? I'm sure there are more, but anyway. Caregivers, people who connect through loving others. People who love visitation. Do I have caregivers? That's how you connect. Let me see. And I've seen people who are like that. I mean, they're so compassionate. By the way, I love those kind of people. They're so compassionate. I mean, they will drop everything just to go and be there for somebody else. Because that's how God also ministers to them. And if you're like that, well, good for you. Right? Then you have enthusiasts. Let me celebrate. People who just love to celebrate all the time. Yeah? Treat yourself. Yeah, these people who make a big deal of everything. It's your birthday, man. You will think that nobody will ever be born after that. They just love it. These are people who will cry over a new supermarket opening, It's a supermarket and they're crying. But it's just, anyway. Then you have the contemplatives. People who just love to worship. Do I have, contemplate? You love to contemplate. You just want to adore the Lord. Let me see by a show of hand. A good number of. By the way, here is a deal. You don't have to necessarily just have one pathway. All right? You might find that you have a combination of several. Actually, most of us. Then intellectual. Any intellectuals here? Let me think. Yeah, good number of us. By the way, I'm like that also. That's one of my pathways for me. For me, I need an intellectual stimulation. All right? Something must challenge me intellectually. All right? This past week, I've actually been on a study leave because I'm doing my doctoral studies. And they've been very taxing. I've just been doing one paper that has been really taxing. And I needed to make reference to about 30 different books and cite them and talk about them and stuff. But that's, for me, that energizes me. It's taxing, but because it stimulates my intellect, So as I said, we are all different. None of them is better than the other. It's just the way God wired us. All right? So please find, the book, if you want to read it, is Sacred Pathways by Thomas, or Gary Thomas. And you can actually also find it on Kindle, digital copy, you can find it there, Sacred Pathways. Number 7, finally, is be yourself. All right? We all have a certain personality that is best suited to to fulfill our God-ordained purpose. And I think I said this earlier, we are not the same, all right? Whatever personality you have, it is best suited to you to fulfill God's purpose. Are you with me? All right? So be yourself. You cannot change your personality. You can only refine it. You cannot change your personality any more than a cheetah can change its spots. All right? So I cannot say, me, I don't like being melancholic. Me, I want to be more of a sanguine. It won't happen. Are you with me? Because it is ingrained in your DNA. It is who you are. All right? And of course, in fact, let's talk about some of those personalities just for a while. They're very, very basic. Well, nowadays, we have so many, in behavioral sciences, we have so many tests you can actually do to determine your personality type. All right? But the very basic one, remember where it all began? There were 4 basic personality types. Cholerics, sanguines, melancholics, and phlegmatics. All right? Melancholics are those ones who are usually very introverted, very artistic. You find a lot of musicians, artistic people tend to be very melancholic. All right? They don't talk much. They keep to themselves. They are very introverted, very meditative. Then you have phlegmatics. Phlegmatics are usually the easy-go-lucky, there's the people who smile all the time, Very nice people. They don't like confrontation. All right? And then you have, okay, let's first talk about sanguines. Sanguines are all over the place. Sanguines can make you tired. Like Pastor Eli here. I think Pastor Eli is a sanguine. Sanguines are the type who will walk into a room. Within 5 minutes, they have had conversation with 10 people. And they don't even know any of their names. That's sanguines for you. They just friendly, outgoing, everything is a sunshine. These are the guys who wake up in the morning and they hear the birds singing. They're just happy they are to be alive. These are the guys who, even when it comes to getting saved, all you need to tell a sanguine is that there's a party in heaven. hey, Kobash. I want to get Jesus coming to my life, See, melancholics, when you tell them about salvation, they have to think. Why? It's not making sense. They have to decipher everything, And then, of course, you have cholerics. Cholerics are very driven people, all right? Very, very driven. A lot of leaders and army generals and, are really cholerics. People who don't know obstacles. They push the agenda and what have you. But, again, you will still find that in every one of us, whichever you lean on, usually there's always a dominant and one that is a bit recessive. Are you with me? So you'll find that you're not fully choleric. All right? I don't know, but I hope you've done those tests for yourself and just to discover who you are. Like for me, I know I am choleric melancholic. All right? I'm very driven, of course, and everything, but I'm also very melancholic. I need my time alone. All right? And that sometimes can be confusing because cholerics tend to be more outgoing. So you find you have this combination where you're on the one hand, depending on what you're doing, you can seem to be very outgoing, but you're also very withdrawn. All are the same. And you have to find who you are and understand no one personality is better than the other. All right? So who I am, I cannot change. This is who God made me to be, and he knew what he was doing. No personality is better than the other. Your leadership is at its best. Please listen. Your leadership is at its best when you are yourself. One of the things that upsets me the most is when somebody tries to challenge my personality. Why can't you be more like so-and-so? I say, because I can't. Are you with me? I can't. Even if you laid your hands on me and poured oil, it's not gonna, I cannot, for example, there's no part of sanguine in me. I can't, it just won't happen. All right? So sometimes when we judge, I wish he was more like this, I wish he was more outgoing. If I'm not as outgoing, I cannot be more outgoing. It's not in my DNA. Oh, you need to laugh a bit more. About what? Are you with me? I'm thinking, what do you mean? All right? Anyway, you cannot use what By the way, listen to this. When it comes to being yourself, you cannot use what he did not put in you. Are you with me? I cannot use what God has not put in me. I can only use what he has put and deposited in me. Do not compare yourself with others, by the way. It is not wise. Don't put down yourself, by the way. All right? Don't compare with anybody. And then, number 7, be yourself and never let anyone make you feel like there's something wrong with you. Can I tell somebody here? There is nothing wrong with you. You are okay. You are perfect the way God made you. Number 8, guard your heart. For out of it flows the issues of life. And I finish with this quote by Mike Cosper. Far from being vulnerable, now talking about Jesus Christ, and I quote, far from being invulnerable and superhuman, Jesus is truly and deeply human. He is vulnerable to hunger and weariness. He is vulnerable to fear and anxiety, as the blood, sweat, and tears of Gethsemane demonstrate. He is perfect, not because he never tires of the crowd and the work of the ministry, but because he rightly responds to weariness, withdrawing to desolate places to rest and pray. This is the hidden ground from which his ministry. All right, isn't that beautiful? Knowing that our Jesus, the one that we serve, he was not invulnerable, he was not superhuman. He came fully man, yet he was fully God. But he was vulnerable to hunger, he was vulnerable to weariness, he suffered want, he suffered pain, he was wounded ultimately. And yet he knew how to deal with it all. This is how he did it. He would constantly, once in a while, withdraw to desolate places to rest and to pray. There's this quote also from Marion Williamson that I enjoy reading from time to time. And I know you may have read it. And I quote, she says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And end of quote, Marion Williamson. Thank you for your time. This has been great. I hope you have learned 1 or 2 things. I hope you're not too hungry. It's lunch hour. But thank you.
The things is, definitely before you go, you will pray for us so that we can learn pastor care. But let's find out if we have a question or 2 before we let you go. 1, anyone else? Maybe a lady? Yes, and then the second one there. We'll take those 2.
Thank you very much, Rev.Jesse. My name is Munyengo Pius, and I've always been grateful to listen to you because I consider you one of the best biblical expositors that God has given us. One of the congregants who truly miss you here in Woodley is me. And reason being that the manner in which you expound the gospel of our Lord Jesus to us, and by the way, Pasi, I'm not flattering you, from the deep part of my heart. My wife and I have ever followed you in Buruburu. Unfortunately, that day, it is Reverend Elio Cheng who was speaking. I think you're on leave. and he was sharing about peace and love, and we also benefited. Otherwise, as I want to reaffirm, just the way I've confessed to one of my brothers who is seated in this congregation, that you and him are some of the biblical expositors that I truly, truly yearn to listen to. Now, my question is this, Reverend Jesse. You have talked about being wounded, and in this case, being wounded by brethren or born-again believers who you serve with in the same ministry in our journey of faith. Now, unfortunately, there is another terminology that I've always referred to as spiritual profiling, which is very common among us, the evangelicals or Pentecostals, whereby when a dude looks at pious, you know, this guy is going nowhere. This one, but you will realize that that is the register of our conversation, even among believers. They know so-and-so is heaven-born, but others have been written off in the spiritual space. And unfortunately, they step on our feet, or we step on each other's feet. We are deeply wounded, and we are expected to continue serving because we are in the body of Christ. So my question is this: if I am hurting from a brethren or a believer like me, and this is a person that I see on day to day, and probably even when I come to church, he or she is the one leading intercessory prayers on top there, how do I manage, or how do I handle such? And just to dig deeper, have you been a victim of such? How did you deal with that?
Personal.
You know, can I answer that one quick? Thanks for the kind comments. You know, the Bible says, "Thou shalt not judge." I mean, and you're right. I mean, that thing of spiritual profiling, you know, is like there are people sometimes who give themselves the responsibility of becoming the spiritual prefects. So they're the ones who know who is spiritual, who is not spiritual. You know, I remember one time when I was in CITAM, and we had a lady who caused a lot of problems in the church because she's the one who was a spiritual guru, you know. And she would, I mean, she caused a lot of problems. I mean, oh, that person is, and one time we had, I think, a few people who had passed on, just the regular things that happen in church sometimes, who had passed on over a space of a short time. And one time she comes and starts telling people, you know, all the people who died were sitting on this side. So that side, I mean, and it was such confusing. And the problem is, usually it is a mark of first is spiritual immaturity, if you're like that. It's actually total immaturity because that's not biblical. That's not how a Christian is supposed to be. Number two is a sign of pride. All right? Like, you know, you're the one who knows. You know, we even have people who come and tell you as a pastor, like, they're the ones who know. You don't know as a pastor. All right? It's pride. That's a lot of pride. And unfortunately, those kind of people are very difficult to deal with and very difficult to correct. Actually, most of them, when you confront them, they leave church. They will leave in a half and they will go to look for another church and they say, your church, those people are not spiritual. Because they're the ones who know, all right? They're the ones who have a direct line to heaven. The rest of us here don't know what we are doing. And we have to be careful about those kind of people. The Apostle Paul, in his epistles, never had kind words, especially for people who will find themselves in the church and they will start bringing confusion and what have you. He was very direct with them. You know that what you're doing is wrong, this is not right, and you know, I can show you episodes even from the scriptures, you know. So that happens, but you as leaders, first and foremost, guard your own heart so that you don't go that direction. And that is why accountability becomes important, so that if I'm going that direction, somebody can walk up to you and say, hey, the way you're talking nowadays, the way you're behaving nowadays, something is not right. All right? So that's number two. Yours was, on the personal level. Of course, I've gone through that. Of course, I've been. Of course, you people know better than me. That I've been through that. But let me also say this, because you guys are leaders. All right, 2019 was a very difficult year for me and my family. All right, very difficult. To date, I still don't know what I did. All right, to date, I can tell you that, and I'll tell you this because I said I'm very direct. Right, I still don't know, but I was profiled, I was castigated, I was called names. All right. And I can stand here and tell you stories and stories and stories. But all I can tell you this, before my God, I did nothing wrong. I can tell you that. And I told that time the leaders that were there, please show me what I have done. There was nothing that I did. But I tell you this is simply because there were people who felt uncomfortable with my ministry, all right? People who felt that maybe they didn't like me for one thing or the other. And I kept saying, please don't compare me with anybody. I came here as Jesse. I didn't come here to fit into somebody's shoes. I came here with my own. And when I leave, I will leave with my own shoes. Are you with me? All right? And 2019 was a difficult year. It affected me. I can tell you some of the things that we went through. To date, all right? There are still people who think, crazy things about us, all right? There are people who don't want anything to do with me. And if you ask them, it's because somebody somewhere, somebody told them. I was in Eldoret 2 weeks ago. Somebody walked up to me. Eldoret, this is somebody I've never, ever interacted with. They walked up in Eldoret. They have never been to Woodley there, but they told me, Pastor, hey, because I was preaching there, revival meetings, and say, hey, Pastor, I was so glad to listen to, because I gave my personal testimony about how God called me to the ministry. And this person came and said, Pastor, thank you so much for sharing your story, because me, what I was told about you. Are you with me? And I said, these are breath. Let me tell you, by the way, 2019, of course, CITAM Woodley, you guys were amazing. The way you surrounded me and my family. I mean, you guys, the congregation here, I mean, no wonder I have kept coming to Woodley since that time, all right? Because we have so many connections with people. I still have, some of you still invite me for your functions. I still dedicate homes for members of CITAM Woodley. Actually, I think in Buruburu, I've done very few weddings. Majority of my weddings are from Woodley, to date, all right? Because there was a connection. Surely, definitely God was doing something here, all right? But I'll say this. And that love, I think is what really carried us through, all right? But I was blessed in the same year, 2019. I had lost my mother. I received very, very few sympathy, very little sympathy from certain quarters, which was very, I never mourned my mother, by the way, in 2019. I never did. I was never given the opportunity to do that. But anyway, in 2019, so in August, and we were at our lowest. By the time we went to Buruburu, thank God for people like Pastor Eli, who, we've really worked very well. But when we went to Buruburu, in August of that year, one day I'm in my house, I get a call. And I'm wondering, this is a foreign number, and what have you? Picking it up, it was from North America, it was Pastor White calling me. My stories had even gone to Canada. Pastor White called me and said, because he's my father, those are my parents. So anything they hear about their sons, they will reach out. So and I had not told him anything. He called me and said, are you okay? That question alone, for me, broke me. And we agreed, and he invited me, and I actually went to Toronto. I sneaked out of this country in October, took a few days leave, sneaked out on a Monday, and was back on Friday, just to go and spend time with my parents. Because it doesn't matter who you are, you still need somebody you can be vulnerable to. Somebody who knows you, somebody who's not impressed by you, but somebody who can embrace you, and if you're wrong, they will tell you you're wrong. And let me tell you, those few, it was about maybe, because by the time you leave here, you get there, I was only there about 2 days. But those were moments that contributed greatly for my healing together with my family. My daughter was very wounded by the time we left. When we got to Buruburu, to date, and Pastor Eli is here, he can confirm, my daughter refused to go to Sunday school. Completely. All right? She would rather come, she would sit in the service next to me, 2 services. Now, a child is hurting when they would rather sit in the service for 2 hours, for 2 services, than go for Sunday school. Are you with me? But we thank God that he has, and I'll be honest. Can I be honest? Those wounds, where did they come from? Brethren. Brethren, people we are going to go to heaven together. Not people out there. Brethren. Betrayals. And what amazed me is that Christians have no problem lying. People fabricate stories. Some of the stories I will be told, I say, me? I was there. I was quoted to have said things. I was crazy. But it was, let me just say, bottom line, it was demonic. So if you ask me whether I've been there all too often. All right? I've been there all too often, but let me tell you this, I'm still standing.
Amen.
Not because I'm better than anybody. Today I am stronger.
Amen.
All right? Today I'm stronger. And I think today I'm preaching the gospel more than I have ever preached. I think right now, it's amazing how God works. All right? Today, like in the past few months, and Pastor Eli is here, this year I think I have preached and preached. Already, my invitations, and not in CITAM, not just within CITAM, my invitations even to other places that, people I have never even met, just calling me from nowhere, are extending all the way now to February next year. Oh, Pastor, can you come and do this? Can you come and do this? Can you come and do this? All right? I mean, just different people calling upon you. But I realized God used that moment to also strengthen me because I'm stronger than I have ever been. Yeah. So let me tell you as leaders, don't believe everything you hear. Please, if you hear something about somebody, go to them. Call them. I think that's the fair thing to do. Say, hey, I heard this about you. Is it true? Yeah. Instead of jumping into conclusion. Before you forward the WhatsApp, find out if it's true. All right? Okay, sorry, I took a little longer on that one.
Thank you. Let's hear the second one.
Yeah.
One is, as a parent, you are melancholic, your child is the opposite of you. How do you ensure you you nurture this, not looking into your character? How do you nurture a choleric when you are melancholic?
That's a very good question, isn't it? Because our children are not like us most of the times. I mean, their personalities may be very melancholic, but your child is very sanguine. And then you begin thinking that there's something wrong with them, because they're not like you. Just let them be. Let them be themselves. Our biggest responsibility as parents is to pass on godly values to our children, isn't it? But those godly values should be passed on to our children, whether the child is this kind of person or that kind of personality. The values are the same, isn't it? But maybe you have 2-3 children, and they all have different personalities. One of the things that I strongly say, never compare your children with one another. So why can't you be quiet like your brother? But child would be wondering, quiet? There's so much to say. You get what I'm saying? Or you find a child who's very withdrawn. Why can't you go out and play out like all the other children? And the child is wondering, me, I'm happy. Do you know there are children who are just happy by themselves? You get? There's nothing wrong. You don't need to take them to a psychiatrist. It's just your personality is forming. So I think as a parent, it's you to exercise that wisdom to understand, oh, my children are different, or even if it's just one child. But the important thing is let the children be themselves. All right? But nurture them, pass on the values, discipline them when you need to discipline them. Are you with me? For example, sanguines can be very good at sneaking. Sometimes they make very good liars. Isn't it? Because they know how to talk their way out of any situation. Isn't it? I mean, you found a guy eating sugar, but he will give you a story. You will believe. You get? But then you as a parent, I think you have to rise above that. Rise above the personality and hold them accountable for their behavior. So it is actually possible. It's not easy, but it's something that can be done. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Wow. Okay, last.
I would want to know, in a situation whereby a person grows up when he's an introvert, but with time, the person becomes an extrovert. What happens, or what is that?
Usually, the older we get, the more we become ourselves. You get? That's what usually happens. All right? Have you ever seen some of the older people? Or maybe you have an uncle who is much older, or maybe a parent, and they speak their mind. Isn't it? I mean, they have no brakes, they have no filter. All right? They are not there to impress you. They don't know how to use good. They are not diplomatic anymore. They just say it as it is. Because the older we get, the more we resign into who we really are. we become more and more comfortable in our own skin. What happens is that sometimes maybe in our growing up, maybe, for example, like that lady was asking about that child who is more outgoing, more of a sanguine, maybe they were so ridiculed by their parent that, oh, you're too much, please be quiet, can't you learn to be quiet? So what happens is this child begins to withdraw. Isn't it? But it's not natural to him, all right, or to her. It's not natural. So then eventually, now as they grow up, as they mature and everything, it's like their personality is changing, but it's really not changing. They're just coming to themselves. You get, because they are discovering, let me give you a good example for myself, all right? When I was growing up, I used to be sometimes ridiculed because, you're too quiet. Why can't, my brother was a sanguine, a proper one, all right? He was outgoing and what have you before, but he passed on. I mean, this guy he knew the whole Nairobi. When he died, you should have seen the people who came for his funeral, all right? I mean, the guy people came wondering, where did you even get the time to get all this, to know these people? But because that's who he was. So at some point, I would be so compared with him. Because me, I'm the type who will just be withdrawn in my own space. I want to read, I want to do my own things, because I'm more of a thinker and everything, all right? And growing up like that, then later in life, especially now going through teenagehood, and I discovered there's nothing wrong with me. Because you see, by that time I'm growing up, I'm wondering, why can't I be more like my brother? Then I discovered, there's nothing wrong with me. I am perfect, all right? This is how God made me. And then I began to live my life and to refine the person that I was, all right? So what happens is people react differently, with some of these ridicules that maybe they receive. Then you think they're changing, they're not really changing their person. They're just coming to themselves, with time.
Thank you so much. One of the things that we learn in LDP, I am also class 2014. I call ourselves the POC, the proof of concept for what LDP would do in later years. I was in that class. My name is Josephine Jirako. I know I didn't say that. One of the things we learn, and I'm so grateful that Pastor, you taught us this, is deep level healing or inner healing. Today we have to agree that we've been given the practical steps, literally, to check ourselves so we don't get to that place of woundedness and hurt. And when we are there, what do? We are grateful for that, Pastor. We are honored that we can go away with this today. So even as we had been told that before you run away to another meeting or to go and do something else, would you take time and see, where am I at? What is that thing that I overreacted about? And just do that self-evaluation and receive your healing once again. So we're going to ask Pastor, before I appreciate you, to just say a quick prayer for us in that particular area of woundedness so that we can walk the right talk. Thank you.
Our Father, we thank you so much. Thank you for this wonderful time of learning and wonderful time just to allow you to speak to us as leaders and to help us, dear Father. Lord, you're the one who has called us to the various leadership responsibilities. You are the one who has anointed us into those positions. Lord, we did not come to these things on our own. You are the one who has led us. But Lord, we confess that we get weary, we get tired, we get overwhelmed. Sometimes we feel burnt out. Sometimes we feel discouraged. And yet also sometimes, Lord, we are wounded in the journey. We are wounded in our interactions with people. And Lord, I pray especially for my brothers and my sisters who are here, dear Lord, those, dear Father, who have gone through those kind of issues, and maybe they're here and they are struggling. Maybe they're here, Lord, and even as we were interacting and talking about weariness and woundedness, Lord, they could identify, certain things, certain people, certain interactions or certain incidences that may have happened in their lives, and maybe they're even struggling to move on. They're struggling to get over some of those things. I pray for them. Father, your grace is sufficient. And Lord, we thank you that more than anything, you are the wounded healer. And Lord, you are able to heal us, to heal your people, to restore us to health. We thank you because you yourself, you also suffered weariness. On that Garden of Gethsemane, you were weary. On the cross, you were weary. You even asked for a drink of water. Lord, we thank you because you are touched by the feelings of our infirmities. You can identify with us. I pray for every leader who is here, dear Lord. Father, would you heal them? Those who are tired, help them to recover. Lord, we know the journey is still long. Feed us, Lord. Feed our souls. Establish us in righteousness, dear Father. And I also pray where forgiveness needs to happen, I pray that those responsible will seek forgiveness, they will seek reconciliation, they will seek to reconnect with one another for your honor and for your glory. So I pray for these leaders. I speak your blessing over them. I speak the blessing of God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit over them. And may the Lord cause his face to shine upon you. May he be gracious over all of you. May the Lord watch over your coming in and over your going out. May the Lord strengthen your feeble arms. May the Lord be with you wherever he leads you, wherever he takes you. And to him who is able to keep you from falling to the day of his appearing, may he bless you and watch over you in the name of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.